Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of We Perceive as We Are. This is our first episode with a guest in the new year, and I think within the past, oh, this isn't our first episode with a guest. So in the month of love. Yes, this is our first episode in the month of love. And the episode topic of today is the differences between love in a whole, crushes, relationships, how you approach it, but the differences between love in heteronormative relationships, which is straight relationships, male on female, versus love within homosexual relationships. Now, in these conversations, it's three females, so we can only give a certain perspective, and obviously, we want to go more into depth with this topic. So, to any listeners who listen, if you guys feel like you have a story, you guys feel like you have a comment, please do let us know. Please put in your 5 cents because, again, we can only come to a conversation from our perspective. But jumping right into it, I would like to introduce our guest, Kabo. We met at YLED when one of our co-hosts had taken us for a session, and it was quite an interesting experience. So I'm just going to pass over the mic, in a sense, to our guest.
Hi, I'm Kabo. I live in Malbatten. This topic is close to me because it is a big part of my life. And yeah, that
Mhm.
shows it.
All right, pretty cool. So when you say this topic is a pretty good topic to your life, why is the topic specifically a big part of your life?
Um, because living as a homosexual and having to experience the different aspects of life when you're not in the heteronormative ways. So it's just a topic that I haven't really heard a lot. So just wanted to bring it out more.
Like for a starter question, what would you feel is the major differences? Since would you say you have experience with both? Let me start with that.
I would say okay, yeah, a little bit of both, yeah.
What do you start the conversation of what would you say with three different or big factors that separate the two?
Um, the first factor I would say is the way we share love. Like in a heteronormative relationship, it's not quite the same as with, for example, if it's with two women, it's more intense than it would be with a male and a female.
Mm-hmm. Saying before you carry on, that segment itself interested me. Why? Well, I'll get back into the two other ones, but just to start here, why do you think that if it's woman on woman, it's more intense than male on female?
I think with two women, it's more intense because women kind of develop on the same level. So it's like falling twice as hard. Like
Mm.
two women fall, women are known to fall faster than men do. So when it's two women, they fall fast together. Whereas with
Yeah.
a heteronormative relationship, the woman might fall faster than the male. And by the time the male finds interest or falls for the girl, it's like the girl has lost interest in a way.
Okay, the in that I do understand that I do see happens a lot that when it comes to what I feel how I could phrase it is that women tend to see potential in a relationship earlier than guys do. As in, okay, I see that things can go well here. I'm investing my energy, and the guy is still unsure about themselves until time has passed and time to show action is over, and therefore the relationship doesn't work out. Versus if it's just women on women where both understanding and there's more it's easier communication that okay. But guys, as a person, sorry to interrupt you, as a person who just came out of a woman on woman relationship, right? And this was my first serious, committed, healthy-ish woman on woman relationship. And one thing that is never spoken about, as Gaba was saying, is the intensity. And the intensity isn't just physical and everything, but it's also emotional. Because as Kabo was saying, that women have developed faster, right? Therefore, they have a deeper understanding of themselves as well before they get into a relationship. Now, that can mess with you as another female when you've never experienced that type of openness coming from female on male relationship. You know, most of my serious relationships had been male on female, and you find a lot of guys that are insecure, and then they take it out in the relationship and everything, right?
So you would say it's an emotional maturity in a way.
It is an emotional maturity. But then the problem, or some problems that, and Gabo, please tell me if I'm wrong, tell me if I'm not the only one who faces this, is that because women have a slightly higher, or women have a higher emotional maturity, they also mask their quote unquote red flags easier. Women tend to hide their red flags easier. Like, guys, a woman will tell you that I have a red flag, but you won't believe it because they are telling you like it's honey. But a guy, you can see the red flags because they are not as emotionally mature to cover them or even know them themselves. You know, I don't know if I'm the only one who's experienced this while interacting with women in that way.
And that is very true, though. With women,
Mm.
it's a lot easier to navigate through that than with men.
What was it like for you, your first experience dating a woman?
Oh, my first real relationship with a female, it was
Mm-hmm.
it was intense, very intense, emotionally and physically. It was just intense. And yeah, I think it lasted about 9 months. And that's the thing with woman on woman relationships, is that sometimes they don't last very long, and when it does end, it really does hurt because it was so intense.
Mm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And the intensity when it's like cut, there's no way to slow down the intensity before a breakup. It's kind of like
Yeah.
cut right in the middle of all the intensity, all the heat and everything. I have a question for you,
Mm-hmm.
Gabo. You
Mm-hmm.
said when you had first mentioned, you said you label as lesbian, correct?
Yes.
So, how old were you when you first came to realize that, nah, guys, men are just not going to hit the spot for me?
Okay. It was a bit of a journey for me. When I really did pay it mind, it was grade 7. At the time, I
Mm,
wasn't fully accepting of myself. And then around the end of grade 8 was when I realized that, yeah, men are not for me.
mm,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Did you have a support structure? Because I know that a lot of, especially teens within the LGBT community, within exploring dating, like I have 3 younger siblings, and they all have some form of curiosity when it comes to the queer community, you know. And I'm glad that
Mm-hmm.
I'm there to be some sort of guidance in a way, as much as I'm still discovering it myself. But I'm there to be like, it's fine, you can try this, you can try that. When you were there in that space, did you feel like you had that support to be able to speak freely about what you were feeling and who you were feeling it towards?
I did. I think I did surround myself with some really good friends, and my best friend was always there for me. So yeah, I
Mm,
did have that support system where I could talk to people about what I'm feeling and not be charged about it.
that's good. That's great. I feel like, especially in South Africa, for me personally, there's a lot of certain stereotypes that surround female on female dating that made it, or that still sort of makes it for me slightly a bit
Uncomfortable.
not uncomfortable, scary to kind of step into the light, or not necessarily the light, but step into the circle of it, you know? Because within our
Mm-hmm.
age group, I guess it also depends on area. me and my family, we've always lived in smaller mining towns and stuff like that. And within that, the queer community is one of two ways. They're either really, really, really tight knit or so
Mm-hmm.
like separated and against each other. You would never believe that they're part of the same community. Like,
That is very true.
yeah, and I feel like one of the main, like, within to stay within the conversation, right? So that we don't drift too far. Um, Something was brought up by my uncle a couple of weeks ago. I know I might sound lost, but I have a point. My uncle had asked me a question like, "What's the difference between?" And it's one of the questions Lulu had asked in the beginning. What's the difference between dating a man and dating a woman? Now, he had asked me this question from the bisexual viewpoint, right? So I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
ask, Kabo, as a lesbian, what's the difference? What would you say is the, going back to the 3 points, is the difference of dating a man and dating a woman?
I'd say for me, because I can't really speak for everyone, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, when I did think I liked men, a lot of the time I would separate myself from the person I was with. Like, I never wanted to be around them. I'd always avoid them. And it wasn't like healthy for me or the
Mm-hmm.
other person. So I had taken upon myself to explore that side of myself and actually see what I do like and what I don't like. So when I did date a girl, it was it was like a breath of fresh air, and I wanted to be around them. I wanted to talk to them all the time. And yeah, it's just knowing what you like, knowing what you want, and figuring yourself out, basically.
I get that because in most of the time in like a relationship aspect, when you get into a relationship, you don't really know. Not in general, right? But I'm talking about for my peers and nowadays when it comes to jollying, you just get into the relationship for the sake of a relationship, and you don't really know why you're there in the first place. And when it comes to now we're talking about queer, the differences and stuff. Sometimes you could find yourself in a situation where you're with a guy, for instance, and it's not the relationship that's the problem. It's just the person that you're in the relationship with. And not necessarily the person, but then their gender in a way that, okay, I'm enjoying the relationship. I'm enjoying the attention that we give each other. I'm enjoying what's going on here, but it just doesn't feel right because it's with you. Versus I could do the same thing, but let it just be someone of the same gender. It would make more sense. I get
Mm,
what you're saying with that.
Yeah, the comfortability aspect.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel right sometimes. Like, oh,
mm,
I I I have an observation within this, right? I feel like, again, you said at the beginning that this is more conversational. So I feel like, yeah, I don't know. But my observation is that within females or within women on women relationships, it's easier to unmask. Even within friendships, it's not even just romantic relationships. Even within friendships, one feels a little more comfortable to take off the mask that you put onto the world and be yourself. Again, it depends on the person as well, not just the gender. Um, but I also feel like that also plays a part. You know, I
mm,
I had a point that I wanted to bring up when you had first brought me this question, right? Oh, but when you had first brought me this topic. So, you know how heteronormative relationships have a lot of kind of subtle nuances to work off, right? There's so many
mm-hmm,
romantic movies about the guy trying to soon the girl and vice versa. Like, if a person
mm-hmm,
wanted to start heteronormative relationships,
it would be very easy.
they have so much material, right? And then that goes back to when you're a kid, when you're trying to discover yourself, when you're getting curious. You always find an easy path to exploring, that straightness. But when it
mm,
comes to on the other end of it, the other spectrum of it, why has it been turned so sexual? Where's the softness, guys? This is an observation that I made when I was within my relationship, right? When I was trying to find
Mm-hmm.
cute things to give my girlfriend or do with her and stuff like that, it's always so centered towards heteronormative relationships. And then anytime you take it on the other side of the spectrum, it would turn more sexual when I'm trying to look for softness. Like, am I the only one who's noticed how society has taken the love of people within the community and tainted it in a sense?
Yeah, I hear you. It's definitely something that affects the community a lot because, like you said, heteronormative ways are often put onto the community. For example, we'll say a
Mm.
masculine presenting woman and a feminine presenting woman are together. A lot of the time, people expect the masculine presenting woman to act like a man. And at the end of the
Yeah.
day, she's still a woman.
Yeah, like
I do. In that way, I do get that when you say that, let's for instance say that just a woman on woman relationship, you could both be femme in that situation and you're just there for love, you're just there for the sake of the relationship. They as to who's the man, who's the woman in the relationship question always comes into mind. And why is that? That okay, when two women in the relationship, why? Okay, I understand that there's a balance of feminine, masculine, dominance, and submissive, but I don't think necessarily there has to be a man in the relationship and a woman in the relationship in in each and every example, because I think each relationships have some sort of unique fingerprint in a way. But then, as society or in the society that we live in, we tend to put things in a box, which is unfortunate, but it happens.
Mm,
um earlier on you were still answering Lou's question on what the three main differences within heteronormative love and love within queer the you were still so we've covered the first one in a sense. You were still going on your
mm.
second one?
Um, the second one, I would say day-to-day life. If you go out and you're walking with your partner and you're a woman with a man, a lot of the time people are like, oh my gosh, they're so cute, and then they mind their business. Where
Mhm.
with two women, it's very easy for them to get harassed by people who just, let me say, who are uneducated, because you get men telling them to kiss. So men who say they should prove that they are actually gay, or
Yeah, they love that they love each other.
yeah. So there's just those differences of acceptance, let me put it like that, in the
Yeah,
society that we live in today.
that makes sense. And it's true, like it goes back the sexualization of the community in a whole. Like in South
Yeah.
Africa specifically, and I've seen this amongst a lot of my guy friends, right? Is that whenever I tell them that I'm queer or whatever, it's fine, they chill with it because mainly or most of the time they chill with it because it's a girl on girl, right? Because in their head,
Mm,
girl on girl is hot, wada wada
It's
wada.
okay.
It's
It's
okay,
normalized.
But then me as a person, I understand that I'm not the only one in the community, right? So I always like to ask the question, okay, what if your homeboy was gay? The reactions to that
Completely different.
are on a completely
mm,
different, like on the completely different side of the coin. I've heard some guys threaten to sexually assault their friend just for their sexuality. Those are some of the extremes. And
mm.
it kind of bothers me. It hurts me. It gets me. It makes me upset. If I'm being honest, because a lot of the time it's they don't even know why they're saying this. You know,
Yeah.
like what has your experiences been with day to day? You as Kabo stepping out in the day to day as a lesbian representing female. What has your experience been?
I'd say I've been very lucky since I've came out because I do have supportive people around me. But
Mm,
you do get some people who are fixed on the fact that they can change you or fix you, and it's like you're not broken and you don't need to be changed. So I do go through that a lot, and then there's always this thing where I come out to someone and they are so surprised, and it's like, why are you surprised? Or they tell me I'm too pretty to be gay, and that sentence, it's a compliment, but it's very backhanded because what do you mean homosexual is
And it's
supposed to
the
be ugly or
negative
something,
too.
you know?
Mm.
Exactly. It's a very backhanded comment. So I do go through some people who are just very narrow-minded on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, the comments they get tired like I can change you. You just haven't found the right one. Yeah, it can get
Eish.
tiring. It can get very, very tiring. And the thing is, it's maybe the concept is when it comes to women on women, specifically in the queer dating community, that as Zila was saying, that it's normalized, not normalized, more sexualized
Mm,
than anything. So it's just attraction. You're just doing it because it's fun and it's more like a sexual thing or it's a phase. You're just do it because your friend's best friend. And as Zero taking it, saying that it takes the genuineness out of it. It takes the true meaning as if it's not someone's true identity. It's not someone who they are as a whole.
mm.
Within heteronormative relationships and within queer relationships, which one would you say has like more of a softness to them? I don't know if my question's making sense.
It does make sense. Um, I feel like in that instance, it really just depends on the person and who they're dealing
Mm,
with because in a heteronormative relationship, you can get two individuals who just are very soft people who are very into loving each other and not just sexualizing the relationship. But you
mm,
keep the opposite, the complete opposites in the same situation. The same thing goes with relationships within the LGBTQ community because there are some people who say they dominance, but really they just like to control everything. So it could get very aggressive in the relationship or become toxic to the people in the relationship. So it just depends on the person.
I that makes sense. That makes sense. That actually makes me think of um a discussion that me and my mom had, which I'm
Mm,
still kind of thinking through my answer on. But it's a thing of abuse is, I know this is a lived name,
Yeah, okay.
right? But abuse within straight relationships, right, is a little bit more, again, this goes with what access of knowledge
Mm.
we have, right? Is that abuse
mm,
within queer relationships is a little bit easier to hide because one or the other tends to be less experienced within it all,
Mm.
mm,
right?
So it's easier manipulated since it's not as normalized as a
As a hetero,
heteronormalized.
yes.
Yeah.
So you find, as Gabo was saying, you find people within the community, and this isn't bashing people within the community,
Mm.
but you find people within the community who they themselves as people are aggressive and stuff like that, and they use their experience, their knowledge of
Queerness
of
in the
queerness,
relationship. Yeah.
and they go and find, baby gays. They go and find baby gays or someone who might be less experienced. And because within day-to-day life, within normal life. You can't go on Google, you can't go watch a movie and be
And
like,
say, how is it supposed to be in a relationship? So it is easier manipulated in that way. As in, you could be in a relationship and this person is being manipulative to you, but like, no, babe, it's not the same thing as you and your boyfriend. We do things different. It's easily, it can be easily manipulated in that way. Yeah.
yeah. So within that, I actually wanted to share an experience of my own. And I feel like I bring up my first ex quite often within conversations about love and everything. But guys, it's your first relationship that teaches you a lot.
Yeah.
About love, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's a straight relationship, whether it's a queer relationship, it's your first serious relationship that teaches you about love. And one
Mm-hmm.
of the main things that I see within queer relationships, and this is queer relationships even in my friends and everything, because of the immaturity and lack of experience in a sense, guys, they throw themselves in, head first,
Yeah.
full board, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they lose themselves within the relationship, right? Like with my first ex, why I brought up abuse, it was a necessarily two-way abusive. It was a two-way abusive relationship, right? Like, and it was never consciously, or I think it was never consciously on both ends, right? So she threw herself first into this relationship because we were still, as I said, within within certain places it's hard to find certain people, right? So we were still trying
Mm-hmm.
to figure out ourselves. Then we decided to throw ourselves within a relationship, right? Now, in media, in whatever you've heard about, especially female on female relationship, there's U-Haul gays in the US, U-Haul gays, how gay relationships move at fast paces, much faster pace than straight relationships.
The intensity.
The intensity of it all, right? And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna lie, we fell into that trap, guys. 1 week flew in, we were saying I love you. Did we know what I love you meant?
That's crazy.
1 week flew
Yeah.
in, we were saying I love you. Second week, we were planning
Oh, wait.
after college, what's happening, you know? And looking back, it's like there's no guidebook to this whole thing. At least with straight relationships, you can go to your mom, or whatever. But within queer relationships, unless you know another queer person that has experience, you're gonna struggle in finding a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of on what to do, how to do. Like Kabo, what is it like for
Mm-hmm.
you
What is it like for me when?
when you have to, like, when you're going out and you're trying to find a relationship? What's that experience like for you?
Ooh. Um, in a sense of actually finding a person, it's a lot more difficult than it would be in a heteronormative relationship because you the community is hiding, guys. Like you don't know where to find people like you know? So
And the thing
then
is,
you
people are not
get
really open about it.
mm, so then you get girls who want to experiment. See, I don't have a problem with somebody who's just trying to figure themselves out, who wants to try different things, but at least be honest from the get-go. You know, so you get females who don't tell you that they don't know where they stand, sexuality wise, and now you're going in head first and then it just falls apart. So finding somebody who's actually going to learn who you are and learn how to love you and vice versa, it's difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, like, dude, I can relate on that. Like, finding, like, guys, finding queer people in the youth. Let me not say, as like from 22, 23, it gets easier. I've seen it. They show themselves a little bit more. You can find them a little bit more. But from 23 downwards, it's hard. It's hard. They camouflage. And for some, they have to camouflage because at home, it might not be safe to be out and everything. And
Mm.
then you've got those, like, there are certain stereotypes that you try to fit in so that you can signal. Like, guys, I
Mm.
know it's an American thing, right? But you know, cuff jeans. Do you know how long when I first came out as bisexual, how long I used to cuff my jeans just so that other people could know that I'm here? Ugh. Guys,
Yeah.
I feel like we're always saying community, community, community. But finding an actual community, yo, it's like pulling out teeth.
Mm.
Yeah. So then you had said the second thing, the day-to-day life out of the three things. So what's the third and final thing about the differences between a heteronormative relationship and a queer relationship?
I think guidance, because
Mm,
when you are straight from like fresh out the womb, you already have been given an idea of how a relationship goes and how to choose one another, whereas in a queer relationship it's not brought up because a lot of the time you are supposed to be this way,
yeah.
you're supposed to be straight and so on and so on because that's how people were raised.
Mm,
um so you don't really get the guidance to actually go through it, which goes back to what you guys were saying about navigating within a queer relationship versus a heteronormative relationship,
mm,
because from being a child you're guided to be straight
straight.
and not queer, so you don't really get that education on a relationship like that.
Yeah, guys, and that's true. That guidance, mm, like, and it's so subtle. It's so subtle the way that we're ingrained to lean towards straightness.
Mm.
It's it's subtle in the way of when you were in school and you're in the playground and a boy was being mean to you. They'd be like, nah, he's just playing with you, he has a crush on you.
Mm.
Like what happened there? But I feel like there's so much to this topic. Mm.
Mm.
So, do you have anything more to add on to the list or to the three things or the three ground things when it comes to the differences between the two?
I would like to add, which it would tie back to sexualizing the community. A
Mhm.
lot of times I've heard my peers, like when you talk about what you want in the future, how many kids you want, a lot of times I've heard them say that I would accept my child if she liked girls, if she was a woman-loving woman, but my son better not be gay, or, just that sense of not being able to accept a man with a man. And it's like, if that's the case, then you shouldn't be having children because you don't know how they're going to come out.
I agree heavily when it comes to that specific thing that when you're already setting boundaries, you're already setting limits, you're already setting expectations for your children and they haven't even been conceived, you shouldn't be having them in the first place. Maybe
Mm.
that's what is it? Yeah, like a weird opinion to have where maybe, controversial in a way. But I feel you really can't design how a kid is going to come out. What if you have a son and you're a really manly man and that's the gayest kid to walk this earth? What are you going to do? There's nothing, it's out of your hands.
And not just that, I also feel like it stops growth within males, guys. Like there's some males who are just feminine presenting, and then it's assumed they're gay, and therefore
Just because you're feminine doesn't mean that you're gay.
it's same with same with women. Just because you're masculine doesn't mean you're gay too.
Yeah.
Like that fit goes back into stereotypes.
Yeah, stereotypes, especially when it comes to aesthetic and fashion, when you dress a certain type of way, you're seen or you're deemed or you're not expected or therefore assumed to have a certain type of personality or a certain type of preference. But guys, that goes back into just assumption in a whole and society, which is a bit messed up if we think about it. But at that point, there's nothing much we can do about it except change it. And that's what we're trying to do.
Kabo, I think this is a good place to end the topic to wrap it up. I feel like we should definitely, if you're up for it, definitely have a live where we can have questions and comments
Different perspectives.
and different perspectives.
Is this is different perspectives, and the reason because it's a different, very broad subject. There's a lot of holes that you can get into, and there's a lot of different ways that you can see it. But also in this conversation, I did feel like we covered a lot, and definitely if you do feel like you want to have another episode on queerness, not just about love, but the specifics, maybe as we're saying, the struggle, the difference on the expectations, especially the one topic that we talked about today, is how it's okay for you to be gay when you're a girl, but it's not when you're a guy. I feel like that's also an episode or a topic that we can get into in the future.
Yeah,
So mm,
I'd definitely love to join you guys on a live or another episode. Love to join you guys again.
that's great. Thank you so much for joining us today. I actually went away a lot from this conversation. It made me think about my own opinions as well. Because if I'm being frank, guys, sexuality is one of those open holes that a lot of people are afraid to kind of like question and jump into because it leads into a lot deeper than that. So, again, thank you for bringing this topic to the platform.
Thank you for having this conversation with us. And as you're saying, hopefully us as in the audience, us as in me and Zila, will see you again or speak to you again in other shape, way, or form. But thank you for today's episode, and I think that'll be it.
This has
Thank you
been
guys for having me.
and this has been Perceive as We Are. Bye. With Kabo. Bye.
Bye.